बाबर से लेकर औरंगजेब तक कुल मिला के मुगल राज देख लो तो आता है 165 साल, जो है 6 जनरेशन्स। बाबर आया था 1526 में आफ्टर विनिंग द फर्स्ट बैटल ऑफ पानीपत एंड औरंगजेब डाइड इन 1707। तो भाई 1526 और 1707 के बीच भारत में और कोई रूलर आया ही नहीं क्या? और कोई शासन हुआ ही नहीं? व्हाट अबाउट मराठा एम्पायर? 7th क्लास की हिस्ट्री बुक बाय जयंती सेनगुप्ता has all the baseless claims that show how great these Mughal rulers were. I will show you a few examples जिससे आप खुद ही समझ जाएंगे कि मैं exaggerate कर रहा हूँ या नहीं। Please get a 7th grade ICSE history book if you have one at home and follow along with me. I will take you page by page through this craziness. Let me know in the comments below if you disagree with any of my points. Welcome to the 12th episode of Breathing History. We are overwhelmed with the response we have received with our Breathing History series, and now we have come to a point that we can use as much help as we can get. If you think our videos add value and help you know the real history of our country, and you think it is important to excavate our real history, please fill out the Google form I put in the description below and join our team. Now look at the index of 7th class history book for ICSE board. It starts with Christianity and its origin, and goes to Prophet and Islam, and then Mughal Empire. Nothing wrong with talking about them, but what about Hinduism in the medieval history? And what about all the Rajput kingdoms and Maratha kings and Ahom dynasty? We're talking about history of India, right? So why so much bias against Hindu kings and religion? Go to page 77, left bottom corner, a portrait of Akbar with tag saying the greatest ruler in medieval India. Greatest ruler, huh? Was there a competition where everyone competes for this title? Who would decide who's the greatest? What about Maharana Pratap? What about Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, who single-handedly built the Maratha Empire in the most adverse conditions, which was the biggest pain in the neck for Aurangzeb? So this greatest ruler was also the one who ordered to make the Tower of Skulls after the second battle of Panipat. And these skulls were of all the Hindu Kafirs, including King Hemu. Keep in mind, there were Muslim soldiers in Hemu's army too, who were spared of the beheading. They conveniently left this detail out of this section on the same page. Go to page 82. Akbar strongly believed in Sulh-i-Kul, or universal peace. So in 1582, he announced the formation of a new religious order, Din-e-Ilahi. This was a combination of various religious ideas and will be acceptable by Hindu, Muslim and other communities and promote national unity. So tell me, where is that religious order now? His descendants are responsible for the most brutal forced conversions in India and destruction of temples. Where is this religion? Din-e-Ilahi? I guess his family itself did not adopt it. No other religion has a mention of accepting anything like this, based on which he is being portrayed as the greatest ruler. Let's go to page 89 and come to his son Salim, or how everyone knows him as Jahangir. Look at the second paragraph, which says the first half of his reign was peaceful with an exception of the rebellion of his eldest son Khusro, who was captured and imprisoned. Now what kind of a father captures and imprisons his own son? Have you ever heard his name? Talking about father and son, not sure how many of you know about Anarkali, Akbar and Salim situation. It is very disgusting. Try looking it up. I'll put some information in the description as well. Let me give you a hint. The reality was nothing like how they showed in the movie Mughal-e-Azam. The next one is even better. Let's come to Jahangir's son Shah Jahan. So on page 91, the first paragraph itself, you think the author could not praise him enough. You see things like age of splendor and cultural brilliance, engineer king, golden age of Mughal Empire. Oh my god. The author keeps on going about how he made Taj Mahal and Red Fort and Jama Masjid, and how he had a passion for white marble. Let's go one by one. So let's start with Taj Mahal. So if Taj Mahal was built by Shah Jahan, this is a big if, because There are a lot of contradictory information out there, but let's say for a moment that it was built by him. Then what did it cost? This book says 1 crore rupees at the time, but this official Wonders of the World website says it costed 4 crores. Here is one discrepancy. Now, how was this money collected? So this engineer king ravaged Malwa to collect tax money. They charged 57% tax from peasants, compared to 16.6% by Hindu kings. His orders to ravage the country from end to end was taken very seriously, and every single village and town and farm was looted. No cultivation or money was left. This, combined with lack of rain the next year, caused the deadliest famine in the country, killing 7.4 million people. And as far as the symbol of love, Taj Mahal, Mumtaz Mahal died while giving birth to Shah Jahan's 14th child after 30 hours of painful labor. So the cost of Taj Mahal, if Shah Jahan built it, was 4 crore rupees and blood of 7.4 million people and a girl who just could not make any more babies. On the same page 91, it says he built Red Fort. There are evidences that show that the Red Fort was built long before Shah Jahan got there by Anangpal Tomar of the Tomar dynasty. Page 92 simply mentions that Jama Masjid is a simple and dignified monument. Now, because this comes under Shah Jahan's section and right after author's praise for Shah Jahan, we can assume that he means that he built Jama Masjid as well. As per Shiv Mahapuran, the Jammukeshwar Shivling is situated where Jama Masjid is, and there are several accounts that this is built over and after demolishing the temple. Golden age for Mughal Empire. Now let's come to his son Aurangzeb, who ascended to the throne after killing 3 of his brothers and imprisoning his father Shah Jahan for 8 years until he died. On page 93, in 1689 CE, Shivaji's son and successor Sambhaji was captured and executed. That's it. This is all. This is all the mention there is about these 2 great warriors. I'm going to make a whole another video on how Sambhaji was killed and the circumstances leading up to it. Obviously, by writing just this one line, how innocently the author has tried to give you the information they want you to know and keep away the detrimental information that would tarnish the image of this great king. On the same page 93, last line, immense treasures of Mughal treasury. Where did these treasures come from? Let me give you a hint. Here are some of the major temples destroyed and looted by Aurangzeb. Just by Aurangzeb. Somnath Temple in Gujarat, Krishna Janmabhoomi Temple, Kashi Vishwanath Temple and Govindadev Temple in UP, Vijay Temple and Chausat Yogini Temple in MP, Ellora, Trimbakeshwar and Pandharpur in Maharashtra. I can keep on going on this. I will need part 1, 2 and 3 for this video to point out other things, but will still not be everything. My intent was just to give you all a trailer or a stint of what is being taught to our kids in school. It is wrong and biased. Kids should know about Christianity. They should know about Islam as much as they should know about Hinduism, if not more. They need to know about Hinduism and Hindu kings and Hindu dynasties. This book has been written from the Mughals' point of view and how much problem did they face establishing their empire and how great they were. If one only reads this book, which our kids would, imagine how ignorant they will be. And based on this knowledge, imagine their decision making. Imagine who would they vote for their own sake. Please, let's just tell them the history just as facts as we know it, unbiased. And let them make a call for what is right or wrong. I think that would be fair. If you like our work, please like, comment and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon and share with your friends and family. This gives us a lot of encouragement and motivation. This is high time for us to unite, so please come and join the cause by filling out the Google form in the description below. And also, if you have any suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. Thank you for watching and see you in the next episode of Breathing History.